Deep in the woods near Adams, Tennessee, lies the Bell family farm home to the Bell Witch, one of the most terrifying hauntings in American history. In 1817, the Bell family began hearing strange noises, thumps, scratches, groans. At first, they dismissed it. Then, the attacks began. Unseen forces yanked children from their beds, pinched, slapped, and tormented the family. John Bell and his daughter Betsy became the focus of the entity's rage. It spoke, hurling insults at John, and then he died. A mysterious black liquid poisoned him. Shockingly, the Bell Witch took credit for his death, the only case in U.S. history where a supernatural entity was blamed for a death. Witnesses outside the family reported seeing strange animals, glowing orbs, and hearing unearthly sounds. This wasn't just a haunting, it was a phenomenon. After John's death, the terror stopped, but the legend grew. Today, there's nothing left of the Bell's household. However, there's an underground cave on their property, and people say that's where whatever tormented the family came from.
Imagine finding a skull inside a tree while searching for bird nests. That's exactly what happened in 1943. In the quiet woods of Worcestershire, England, 4 boys searching for bird nests made a spine-tingling discovery, a human skull inside a hollow wych elm. Authorities later recovered a nearly complete skeleton, with a hand buried separately nearby. The victim, a woman whose identity remains a mystery to this day. Was she the victim of an occult ritual, a wartime spy whose mission went awry, or something even more sinister? In 1944, mysterious graffiti began appearing across the region asking, who put Bella in the wych elm? Decades later, the question still haunts us, leaving one of England's eeriest mysteries unsolved. What do you think happened to Bella? Share your theories in the comments.
The man in this photo is one of the worst sexual offenders in the history of Ohio. This man's name was Brian Peppers. For years, this photograph circulated on the internet attached to his story of sexual abuse, and nobody believed that it was real. But some fact-checking was eventually done, and yes, Brian Peppers was a real man with a real peppered past. So Brian was born with something called Cruzon syndrome. And when Brian was younger, he was bullied incessantly by people in his school. So as Brian grew older over the years, his body quickly began to grow weaker, and eventually his mental health deteriorated to such a point that he had to be checked into a nursing home. But it was in the year 1998 when Brian was arrested and convicted of molesting somebody. According to the report, he actually sexually abused the nurse that was taking care of him in the nursing home. Brian was then removed from the nursing home. He spent 30 days in jail, and he was on probation for 5 years. After this incident, Brian was on the sex offenders registry in Ohio up until his death. When he died, Brian Peppers was only 4 foot 1 inches tall, and he passed away on February 7th, 2012, which, eerily enough, is the day that I'm posting this TikTok, and I didn't even realize it until I read that just now.
Stop scrolling if you dare. This is the true story of the shadow stalk of South Jakarta. In Indonesia, whispers of a phantom figure known as the Hantu Penguntit spread like wildfire. Locals described it as a dark silhouette, silently pacing behind late-night wanderers. But it wasn't just an urban legend. In the 1990s, a series of horrifying incidents baffled authorities. People vanished, only for their bodies to be discovered days later, marked with cryptic scratches. Eyewitnesses swore they saw a shadowy figure trailing the victims. The eeriest account. A university student took a detour one night, feeling a presence following her. Turning around, she only saw an unnatural shadow on the wall, without any source. Days later, she was gone. Authorities labeled it as the act of a serial killer, yet no concrete evidence linked to a person. So, what is Hantu Penguntit? A chilling urban myth, or a gateway to something far darker? Think twice before walking alone at night. You might not be alone.
Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. The case of Richard Trenton Chase is a story which even the most depraved horror writer would struggle to create. Over the course of 4 weeks spanning across 1977 and 1978, Richard Chase took the lives of 6 innocent victims in Sacramento, California. His murders gradually progressed in violence, beginning with drive-by shootings and culminating in acts of cannibalism.
Jessica and Stephen walked around the house, peering through the windows. They immediately noticed a significant mess inside and saw that the mosquito screen on one of the large windows had been cut. The window itself was open. Alarmed, they called law enforcement right away but refrained from entering the home themselves. When police arrived and entered the house, they were hit by the strong smell of cleaning products containing chlorine. The interior was in disarray, with belongings scattered across the floor. The master bedroom was in complete chaos. Signs of a violent struggle were apparent. The mattress had been shifted, a nightstand was overturned, a flower pot and a framed photo were shattered on the ground. However, there was no trace of Russell or Rebecca in the house, leaving a faint hope that they might still be alive. In the bedroom, the odor of bleach was overwhelming. The mattress and carpet had been thoroughly saturated with the chemical, and small puddles of it had collected on the floor. This appeared to be a desperate attempt to eliminate evidence, but until the scene could be properly examined and tested, no definitive conclusions could be drawn. The initial theory was that the crime stemmed from a burglary gone wrong. Investigators determined that an intruder, or possibly multiple intruders, had entered the home through an open window after cutting through the mosquito screen. The assumption was that the intruder planned to steal valuables, but was confronted by the homeowners, leading to a violent struggle. However, this theory quickly unraveled due to several inconsistencies. First, all valuable items and cash were left untouched, despite being in plain sight. Second, the house showed no signs of a search. Most of the scattered objects appeared to have been knocked over during the altercation. Lastly, the biggest mystery remained. What had happened to Russell and Rebecca Porter?
Did you know that Ravenswood, once the grandest estate, hides a dark secret? In the late 19th century, Lady Evelyn Aldridge was found dead under suspicious circumstances. Rumors of betrayal and murder spread, but no one was ever charged. Soon after, strange occurrences began to plague the town. Servants reported seeing Evelyn's ghostly figure roaming the halls, her eyes filled with sorrow and rage. Visitors spoke of chilling encounters with the phantom of Ravenswood, feeling an icy presence and hearing whispers of betrayal. Some even claimed to see Evelyn's ghost seeking revenge. Ravenswood Manor was abandoned, but the legend of Lady Evelyn's restless spirit lives on. To this day, locals warn of the haunted manor, where the phantom of the betrayed woman roams, forever seeking justice.
The mysterious disappearance of Russell and Rebecca Porter from their own home was deeply alarming and suspicious from the very beginning. It was clear they couldn't have simply left without saying a word to anyone, leaving behind all their personal belongings. Moreover, the disorder inside the house pointed to signs of a struggle, as if someone had tried to cover up evidence of a brutal altercation. However, the real shock came when the truth about what had happened, and who was behind it, finally came to light. You might find yourself stunned as well. In the summer of 2010, Russell and Rebecca Porter moved to the small, picturesque town of Willard, Missouri, after Russell inherited a large farmhouse from his grandfather. The town was a quiet, rural area with a low crime rate, friendly neighbors, and a welcoming atmosphere. However, this peaceful impression would soon prove deceiving. On April 19, 2011, 46-year-old Rebecca failed to show up for work. She hadn't informed anyone of an absence, and her no-show was highly unusual. Calls to her phone went unanswered throughout the day. While her co-workers found this strange, they initially avoided jumping to conclusions, assuming there was some reasonable explanation and waiting for Rebecca to contact them herself. Around 9:30 a.m., a neighbor noticed Rebecca's car parked in front of the house. This seemed odd, as she typically left for work by 9 a.m. Curious, the neighbor decided to knock on the Porter's door to check on them, but there was no response. Assuming the car might have broken down, he guessed that Russell may have driven Rebecca to work and thought little of it. By 1 p.m., Rebecca's daughter Jessica arrived at the house. Concerned after being unable to reach her mother, Jessica decided to drive over and check in person. Around the same time, Rebecca's son Stephen, who had left work early, also showed up, worried about the lack of contact with both his mother and stepfather.
However, coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up," might have known the story of real-life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair, no one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
Siya si Albert Fish, Oo, si Isda. At wala nang paligoy-ligoy pa. Kumain siya ng... Alam nyo na. At pagkatapos niyang kainin, pinadalhan niya ng sulat ang magulang ng kinain niya tungkol sa kung paano ang ginawa niya. Ang kapal, di ba? Nung bata pa siya, iniwan siya sa orphanage kasi yung nanay niya hindi kinayang responsibility. Classic. At doon sa orphanage, parang final boss sa horror game ang buhay niya. Bugbog dito, bugbog doon. At dito na nagsimula ang twisted fantasy niya. Natutunan niyang enjoyin ng sakit. Sabi ko na nga ba, trauma pa lang. Villain origin story na. Fast forward pare. Si Fish, nag-level up na. Sa sobrang twisted niya, nag-imbento siya ng sariling hobby. Naging cannibal. Yes, kain tao mga tropa. At eto pa, may paprank siya sa mga magulang ng biktima dahil pinadalhan niya ito ng sulat kung paano ang ginawa niya sa biktima. Noong 1928, nakilala niya ang batang si Grace. Sinabi niya sa pamilya ni Grace na dadalhin niya lang ito sa birthday party. Spoiler alert, walang birthday party. Pagdating sa bahay niya, ginawa niyang dinner si Grace. Literal na birthday party meal. Kung tutusin, parang naging MasterChef Cannibal Edition ng eksena. Pero hindi ito ang cooking show na gusto nating panoorin, tropa. Alam kong hinihintay nyo kung ano ang laman ng sulat. Pero kung nai-imagine nyo na hindi nyo kaya, mag-scroll up na kayo. Eto na. Ayon kay Fish, una niyang pinatay si Grace gamit ang kanyang sariling kamay. Walang gamit na kutsilyo o kahit anong bagay. Brute force mga tropa. Nararamdaman nyo ba yung sakit? Tapos, dinisassemble niya ang katawan ni Grace gamit ang isang maliit na butcher knife. Detalyado pa niyang kwento na parang recipe book ang ginawa niya. Pero ito pa ang wild. Niluto niya ang laman ng bata. Paano niya niluto? Sabi niya sa sulat, hinati niya ang katawan nito at pinili lang ang masasarap na parte. Niluto niya ang laman loob sa oven. Parang steak daw. Nilagyan pa ng salt and pepper at bacon para dagdag flavor daw. At yun ang sinapit ng kawawang bata. So, syempre nahuli si Fish. Paano siya nahuli? Dahil sa kabobohan din niya. Yung sulat na pinadala niya galing sa envelope na may embossed address. Ang FBI, napabilis ang trabaho. Kinalkal ang envelope at nahanap kung saan siya nakatira. At nung 1994, nahuli siya ng mga otoridad. Ayos din, no? Akala mo master criminal. Pero tinamaan din ng katangahan. Noong 1936, natikman ni Flesh ang ultimate karma. Nasilya electric kasi lolo. Sabi niya, excited daw siya kasi parang Christmas daw. Parang may tama talaga sa ulo. So kung gusto nyo pa ng mga ganitong kwento, alam nyo na ang gagawin. Like, share, and follow lang mga tropa. Hanggang sa susunod na kwentuhan. Peace out.
Being the eldest, Bibi held them all together like glue. She became the strength they all needed, but when things got too much for her, it was Nicholas who stepped in. At the start of the project, he'd felt like a bit of an outsider. Of course, being married to Bebe, he had a connection with her, but the other three women not so much. Now, though, almost 30 years later, it wasn't just that he was the photographer and they were his subjects. He truly felt like a brother to the other three women. He'd seen them change physically and mentally over the years. He'd even inadvertently been in a few of their photos when his head or his lens would cast a shadow on one of them. They were always the photos the sisters insisted on using, a little way to make sure that Nicholas was in the series too. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to him, even if his artist's eye couldn't move past them picking imperfect pictures. By the fourth decade, though, the sisters had some news for Nicholas. They wanted the project to end. They were all old now, and it felt like the perfect time to end things while they were all still around. For one last time, the sisters stood together in the same lineup as they had for the past 40 years, and Nicholas took the last photo for the series. None of them knew it would also turn out to be the last photo of the four of them together. None of them had ever put a time frame on the project, but for some reason now felt like the perfect time to stop. Years later, Baby would reflect on this moment and wonder if they all had a kind of sixth sense for what was about to happen. Every year for 4 decades the sisters had gathered together, but for reasons none of them could fully articulate, it felt like the right time to stop. Nicholas showed them all 40 photos, and it had more of an impact on them than they could have ever imagined. Rather than picking out all the negative ways in which they'd aged, for the first time ever, they truly appreciated all the ways they'd changed. They were just 4 ordinary women who had never placed too much value on appearance. But seeing the timeline spread out from the first photo to the last one was remarkable. Every new line was a story.
It was supposed to be a normal Sunday morning to when she went to go grab her morning paper on her front step, only to be shocked to look up and see a clown with the most unsettling smile on its face, having blood dripping down its forehead with a gun pointed directly at her. What sounds like a horror movie is actually the unfortunate real story of Sheila Warren in The Killer Clown. In May 26 of 1990 in Wellington, Florida, Marlene Warren was having breakfast with a friend and her son when she heard the doorbell ring. The horrific thing that was standing outside her door was not a person, it was actually someone dressed in a clown costume, the full-blown thing with blood dripping down its face. It was not only standing there, it was aiming a pew-pew directly at Marlene and then eventually pulled the trigger and pew-pewed her in the face. After the gunshots were heard, it was heard that the clown just ran off into the distance with a very hysterical and unsettling laugh. Marlene was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately 2 days later was announced unalived. Police immediately began investigating. Witness actually described that the clown's car was left at a public supermarket not even 10 miles away from the scene. Costume was also tracked down by a receipt that was left by the clown while running away to a local party city a few miles down. The costume was so distinct that the clerk actually remembered who the person they sold it to. This is when the investigation takes a turn for the worst. With this man, Marlene's husband, Michael Warren, it's when it came out that Michael, while married to Marlene, was having an affair with this woman, Sheila Keene, a younger woman at the time who worked for Michael at his car dealership, yet it wasn't confirmed that Sheila had anything to do with it, but she was known by her friends and family to be absolutely psychotic. Yet there were rumors around the town that Sheila supposedly wanted Marlene out of the picture so she could have Michael all to herself and she wouldn't let anything stop her. Even though the police had suspicions from community and talk that Sheila might have had something to do with this, DNA testing was actually not strong enough in the 1990s to prove anything. Years go by and nothing's proven. No one's able to figure out who the killer clown was until the early 2000s when Sheila and Michael conveniently actually got married and moved to Tennessee. They ended up starting a restaurant together and starting a whole new life in a neighborhood in Tennessee with friends and family thinking they're just a normal hardworking couple. Little do those people know that Sheila and Michael share a very dark and horrific past. Fast forward to 2014 when actually investigators are digging back into Marlene's case and now have advanced enough DNA processing to open the case back up. And who would have thought the only person that the DNA matched up to was Sheila Warren. After the DNA was connected, not even 27 years after the killer clown attack happened, Sheila Warren was arrested in her house in Virginia. This court case took forever because Sheila's legal team did such a good job, and actually after many years of delays and debates on whether Sheila should get life in prison or the pew-pew penalty, it finally came to a conclusion. Sheila pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and actually was only sentenced to 12 years in prison. Never believe this part. Sheila Warren only served 18 months of her entire prison sentence. A lot of this case just does not sit right with me on why she dressed like a clown, and Michael Warren, her former husband, wasn't even looked at in this case. There's a lot more to unpack on this case and many more like it, so make sure to let me know what you guys think down below. And honestly, after researching this story, I am now officially terrified of clowns.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love.
They say every house has a story. Some are filled with joy and laughter, while others hold secrets that are better left.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains that last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Vivid, terrifying.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
It pulsed with a...
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some modestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead of say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable.
Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of
my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. Similar to mine.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
It wasn't just in my sleep. The dark figure was there in my room, its eyes burning with a malevolent intensity. It was there, standing at the foot of my bed, watching me. Its presence was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran. I left everything behind. Fear was too much, and I knew I had to leave it. My clothes, my belongings, my life. I abandoned it all in my desperate bid for freedom. I promised myself I'd never return. Somehow this has stories that are better left untold. This one has a nightmare. A nightmare that continues to haunt the empty halls and dark corners. And it's still there, waiting, watching, for the next unsuspecting soul. The demon in the attic, forever lurking in the shadows, ready to claim its next victim.
73-year-old Philip Peters was murdered in his home by the man known as the Denver Spider-Man, who'd been living in Philip's attic for the past 5 weeks. Philip had a wife and children and was a retired railroad employee. He'd been staying in his home in Denver alone because his wife was in the hospital recovering from a broken hip. Little did Philip know, but Theodore Conies had broken into his home and was living in his attic. Theodore just kind of moved himself into the house after breaking in to steal food and money in September. Apparently he just decided to stay and found a trap door to the attic through a ceiling in the closet. He would sleep up there and come down to get food while Philip wasn't home. On October 17th, Philip was shocked to find Theodore raiding his refrigerator that night, and a fight ensued. Theodore bludgeoned Philip to death with a cast iron stove shaker. Police were baffled by the crime, and when Philip's wife Helen got home from the hospital, Theodore just kept living there, eating from the fridge and hiding in the attic. Helen was convinced there was a ghost in the house with the missing food, strange sounds, and things being out of place. She ended up moving to Grand Junction to live with her son, and the house sat empty, except for Theodore secretly living inside. Neighbors reported strange sounds and smells, and the police decided to take a closer look. On July 30th, 1942, police were staking out the house when they spotted Theodore inside. He was arrested and sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Philip Peters. He got the nickname the Denver Spider-Man after a detective commented, "A man would have to be a spider to stand it long up there."